Still relying on eyeballs and intuition to manage your herd? While you're doing that, your competition is already light years ahead, banking serious cash with tech that sees what you can't. Welcome to the Bullvine Podcast, where we're not here to sugarcoat reality. Today, we're ripping the cover off 6 game-changing ID technologies that every single North American dairy farm needs to be looking at right now. We're talking a proven 17% efficiency boost, cold hard cash benefits like $78,000 per 100 cows, and the kind of insights that spot a sick cow days before your best herdsman even blinks. This isn't about shiny toys. It's about survival and thriving in an industry where nearly 2/3 of U.S. farms have vanished while production soared. The question isn't if you should adopt, but how fast can you get on board before the tech train leaves you standing in the dust? So, buckle up. We're about to explore how these innovations are redrawing the map of dairy profitability. Let's get into it.
All right, you savvy dairy dynamos, let's get straight to brass tacks.
Let's do it.
Word on the barn floor, and we've seen some serious data backing this up, is that dairy farms leveraging the latest in identification tech are seeing a whopping $78,000 extra jingling in their pockets.
That's per 100 cows.
Per 100 cows. 78,000. That's not just chump change. That's the kind of figure that makes you sit up and think, okay, am I missing a trick here?
Absolutely. It's a huge number.
The big question we're wrestling with today, and frankly the one you should be chewing on right now, is this. Are you potentially leaving that kind of cash on the table?
That's a barn burner of an opening, and it really throws a spotlight on the kind of financial firepower we're talking about.
Yeah, it's serious money.
We've been neck deep in the research, the articles, all the good stuff about the tech that's not just changing the game in dairy, but rewriting the rules.
So our job today
is to distill all that information into the real, actionable insights that matter to you, the folks out there running the dairies, day in and day out. Think of this as your cheat sheet.
Exactly. Your cheat sheet to understanding what's truly cutting edge and, more importantly, what's going to deliver a tangible boost to your bottom line.
Couldn't have said it better myself. This isn't some watered-down overview for the newbies.
No, definitely not.
We know you're out there battling labor shortages, navigating market swings, and keeping a sharp eye on sustainability and animal well-being.
Tough environment right now.
So we're not going to insult your intelligence with the basics. Instead, we're diving deep into the 6 key identification technologies that have moved beyond being fancy gadgets to become fundamental tools for profitability on North American dairies.
Right. Tools you need.
Our mission, to unpack these technologies, see how they're being used right here at home, and really drill down into the dollars and cents of getting on board versus sticking with the old ways.
And as we roll up our sleeves and get into the specifics of these technologies, it's crucial to keep the bigger picture in focus.
The context.
Yeah. The dairy landscape across North America is evolving at warp speed. We're facing serious headwinds with finding good labor,
Big challenge.
dealing with markets that can be more unpredictable than a calf in a china shop, and responding to ever-increasing demands for sustainable practices and top-notch animal care.
It's a lot to juggle.
In this environment, digital transformation isn't some trendy Silicon Valley jargon. It's rapidly becoming the very foundation for staying competitive and, frankly, staying in business.
Amen to that. It's not just about keeping pace, it's about pulling ahead of the pack.
Definitely.
Take Simon Lalonde in Quebec, running a 400-cow operation. He's not just reading headlines about labor shortages, he's living it.
Right, boots on the ground experience.
But by adopting collar technology, he managed to trim his full-time workforce from 6 down to 4. Just let that sink in.
Wow, 6 to 4.
That's a massive saving right there.
Yeah.
And the kicker, they're actually getting more detailed health monitoring on their herd than they could achieve with more boots on the ground.
That real-world example perfectly illustrates the broader trend we're seeing. The data from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce paints a stark picture of this labor crunch,
It's pretty bad.
with a significant mismatch between the number of job openings and available workers. This isn't just a rural issue. It's a widespread challenge hitting agriculture hard.
True.
And it's this very pressure that's fueling the increasing demand for technologies that can help farmers maintain or even boost production with a leaner team.
You see the ripple effect in the companies that support our industry, too.
Oh, yeah.
GEA Farm Technologies, for instance, has witnessed such a surge in demand for their rotary parlors, those big automated milking systems, that they've shifted more of their production stateside.
Makes sense. Automation is key.
As Matt Daly from GEA put it, farmers are increasingly turning to these higher capacity automated systems as a direct answer to the need to milk more cows efficiently with less labor.
What's particularly compelling is how far these ID technologies have come. We've gone way beyond simple systems for slapping a number on a cow for basic record keeping.
Oh, miles beyond that.
Today's systems create a comprehensive digital footprint for each animal. They are constantly collecting data that, when crunched effectively, delivers truly actionable insights.
Like what kind of insights?
Think about it from subtle shifts in chewing patterns that might signal an oncoming illness,
Okay.
to pinpoint accuracy in predicting when a cow is ready for breeding. These technologies are essentially acting as tireless, around-the-clock digital herdspersons.
A 247 digital eye on the herd. Okay, let's dig a little deeper here. We've established that the dairy landscape is shifting rapidly and that technology is a key part of navigating this change.
Right.
But where do you, our listener, see your own operation fitting into this picture? Are you the kind of producer who's always eager to try the latest innovation, or do you tend to take a more wait-and-see approach?
That's where Eric Rogers' diffusion of innovations model provides a really insightful lens. He identifies 5 categories of adopters.
Ah, yes, the Rogers curve. Starting with the innovators, the real risk takers who are always chasing the next big thing. Then you have the early adopters, who are more strategic, but still quick to embrace technologies with proven potential.
Okay.
Following them are the early majority and late majority, who tend to be more pragmatic and adopt after seeing widespread success and feeling the pressure to keep up. The bulk of folks, usually. Exactly. Finally, there are the laggards, who are often the most resistant to change and typically only adopt when absolutely necessary. It's kind of funny. You can probably picture folks you know who fit neatly into each of those categories, can't you?
Oh, definitely. We all know them.
The neighbor who always has the newest gadget versus the one who's still running equipment that's older than you are.
Yep.
But beyond just personality types, there are some real fundamental differences both in the structure of the farm and the way the operator thinks that tend to separate these groups, right?
Absolutely. Research, like the studies coming out of Wageningen University, consistently shows that larger farms, those with a strong foothold in the market, and operations with greater financial flexibility tend to be the ones leading the charge.
Makes sense. More resources.
In adopting new technologies. Factors like the age of the operator and the farm's financial health can also play a significant role. However, and this is a really critical point, it's not just about the resources you have, it's also about your approach.
The mindset.
Producers who actively seek out information, attend industry events, like maybe reading the Bullvine, and are open to advice from external experts are far more likely to be among the innovators and early adopters.
So it's not solely about the size of your bank account, it's also about having a forward-thinking mindset.
Exactly.
But let's be honest, there's a definite competitive angle to all of this, isn't there?
Exactly. As the saying goes, you don't have to have the latest technology, but you have to compete with those who do.
That's the hard truth.
And the significant consolidation we've witnessed in the U.S. dairy industry over the past generation really hammers this point home. We've seen 2/3 of dairy farms disappear,
2/3.
while total milk production actually increased by 1/3. That dramatic shift wasn't just a coincidence. It was largely driven by the ability of some operations to embrace efficiencies through technology,
Adapt or get left behind.
leaving those who didn't adapt struggling to keep pace, and ultimately many having to call it quits.
Okay, so we've laid the groundwork on why this is important and where different folks might stand on the adoption curve. Now, let's get down to the nitty-gritty and talk about the specific technologies that are making waves.
Let's do it.
And it seems like the cornerstone for a lot of these advanced systems is something that, on the surface, is pretty straightforward. Radio frequency identification, or RFID.
That's spot on. RFID is truly the foundational layer upon which so much of modern herd management and traceability is built.
The bedrock.
Across North America, from the Dairy Trace program up in Canada to a multitude of state and industry-led initiatives in the U.S., RFID provides the essential infrastructure for uniquely identifying every animal as it moves through the supply chain.
And it's not just about knowing which Bessie is which, right? there are some real tangible financial benefits to ditching those old visual ear tags for a more sophisticated system.
Absolutely. Dave Taylor at Progressive Dairy Solutions has seen this firsthand with a 150-cow operation.
What did they find?
By implementing RFID coupled with automated readers, they saw a dramatic reduction in the number of misidentified animals, which were costing them around $11,500 annually.
11 grand just from misidentification.
But the benefits didn't stop there. They also experienced an 84% plunge in breeding errors
84%.
and a significant 9.2-day reduction in their average days open. That's the time between calving and the next successful conception.
Those are huge wins for both efficiency and the bottom line. Wow, those are some eye-popping numbers.
They really are.
And it sounds like this isn't some fringe technology either.
Not at all. Dr. Lars Nielsen from Aarhus University in Denmark points out that a significant 73% of dairy herds there are now using RFID integrated with other monitoring technologies as standard practice.
73%. That's mainstream.
Their research clearly shows that as you layer these technologies together, the precision of your management ramps up significantly.
Right.
And when RFID enables that crucial, accurate individual monitoring, they've even measured a direct correlation to increased milk yield a 0.23 liters per day increase for every 0.1 unit improvement in rumen pH.
Just from better monitoring.
All thanks to more targeted individual attention enabled by that reliable ID.
So for the producers listening who are still using traditional tags, what kind of investment are we actually talking about to make the switch to RFID? It can sound a bit daunting if you're used to just clipping in a simple ear tag.
The initial investment for a basic RFID system is actually quite manageable for most operations. You're typically looking at around $20 to $35 per cow.
Per cow, okay.
And that includes the RFID tags themselves, which are only a few bucks a piece, the readers, which can range from around $1,000 to $2,500 depending on the level of automation you choose, and the software integration to make it all work seamlessly.
And the payoff.
The good news is that the vast majority of producers see a return on this investment within a relatively short window of 12 to 18 months.
That's pretty quick.
This comes from those reduced breeding errors we talked about, better management of those critical transition cows, and increased overall efficiency in the milking parlor.
Makes sense.
For a 200-cow dairy, you might be looking at an initial outlay in the ballpark of $8,000 to $12,000, but the annual benefits, based on industry averages, can easily exceed $15,000.
That payback timeline doesn't sound too scary at all. And you used a great analogy earlier, comparing traditional ear tags to RFID with Parley rotations.
The sundial versus the clock.
As the difference between trying to tell time with a sundial versus a modern digital clock. You can certainly get by with the sundial, but you're never going to have the same level of precision and efficiency in managing your time, or in this case, your herd.
Exactly. And building on that solid foundation of individual animal identification provided by RFID, we're now seeing even more cutting-edge technologies emerging that take things to a whole new level.
Oh, yeah. What's next?
Like facial recognition for cattle.
Facial recognition for cows? Seriously, I thought that was just for unlocking my phone and maybe catching the occasional rogue grocery cart thief.
Well, the core technology is similar, but the application in the world of dairy farming is proving to be incredibly innovative.
I bet.
These systems utilize sophisticated computer vision and artificial intelligence to identify individual cows based on their unique facial characteristics, completely eliminating the need for any physical ear tags whatsoever.
Tagless ID. That sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie. How well does it actually work in a real-world dairy setting?
Remarkably well, actually. A lot of recent research has focused on developing and refining these deep learning network models, and one notable example is the GPN model.
Okay.
These advanced algorithms have demonstrated significant improvements in accuracy when it comes to correctly identifying individual cows, even when dealing with less than ideal conditions like partial obstructions in view, different camera angles, and variations in lighting.
So it's robust.
These models are trained on massive data sets in one instance, over 130,000 images of 3,000 different cows to create a really robust and reliable system. Think of these as highly sophisticated computer programs that learn to recognize patterns in images.
Like our brains do.
Much like how our brains learn to recognize faces, but on a massive scale with cow faces.
So no more wrestling with a feisty heifer to replace a lost tag. That sounds like a pretty significant win in terms of both labor and stress on the animals right there.
Huge win on that front.
But are there other advantages beyond just going tagless?
Absolutely. Melissa Burton at Birkdale Farms in Ontario shared a compelling example of the added value.
What happened there?
They installed cameras in their holding area and return alley, and their facial recognition system flagged a cow with an unusual gait a full 3 days before their experienced herdsmen noticed any outward signs of lameness.
3 days early? Wow.
Because they were able to intervene so early, they estimate they saved around $300 in potential treatment costs and prevented approximately 240 kilograms of lost milk production from that single animal.
Just from one cow, one instance.
Based on that type of early detection alone, they calculated that the system paid for itself in under 8 months.
That's incredible. Catching a potential health issue that early in the game can make a massive difference, not only in the treatment outcome, but also in the cow's overall well-being and continued productivity.
Precisely. And ongoing research at Cornell University's Agricultural Systems Testbed is further exploring the potential of combining facial recognition technology with data from other on-farm sensors.
Layering the tech again.
To create even more comprehensive and proactive health management strategies. Their findings indicate that these automated sensor systems can be just as effective, if not more so in some cases, than intensive human observation when it comes to identifying health issues.
And less labor.
But with a significantly reduced labor requirement.
Okay, so what's the ballpark figure we're looking at for investing in this kind of cutting-edge tech? It's got to be a fair bit more substantial than a basic RFID setup, right?
You're correct. It does represent a larger initial investment. For a mid-sized dairy operation, you're typically looking at somewhere in the range of $15,000 to $25,000 for the complete system.
Okay, 15 to 25K. What does that cover?
This would include the necessary cameras, the server hardware to process the image data, and the software licensing fees, which may also include an annual subscription component.
Right.
However, while the upfront cost is higher than RFID, the substantial added value, particularly through that early and accurate detection of lameness and other health problems, often leads to a very compelling payback period, typically falling within the 12 to 24-month range. Many operations are reporting average annual benefits of around $9,400 per 100 cows, simply from being able to intervene earlier and more effectively when health challenges arise.
So the key takeaway with facial recognition seems to be that it's not just about the convenience of going tagless.
No, it's more than that.
It's about having a system that's constantly and objectively watching your herd, capable of spotting those subtle changes in behavior or physical condition that even the most experienced human eye might miss in the very early stages.
Exactly. It's about literally seeing beyond the tag and gaining a level of detailed insight into your herd's health and well-being that simply wasn't attainable with traditional methods.
Makes sense.
And speaking of gaining internal insights, let's now turn our attention to rumen biosensors.
Okay.
Now, this is where things get really fascinating. We're talking about monitoring the health and performance of your cows from the inside out.
Whoa, now we're getting into some serious high-tech territory. Tiny devices living inside the cows. Spill the beans.
These are essentially small, inert, smart boluses, often referred to as rumen boluses or smart pills that are safely administered orally.
Like giving them a big pill.
Pretty much. And then they reside in the reticulum, which is part of the cow's stomach complex. These ingenious devices continuously transmit real-time data on crucial internal indicators like body temperature, rumen pH levels, and even activity patterns directly to the farm's management software system.
So what's the big deal about keeping tabs on rumen pH in particular? Why is that so important?
Rumen pH is a really critical indicator of a cow's overall digestive health and efficiency. Acidosis, a condition where the rumen pH drops below a healthy level, typically below 5.6 for an extended period.
Yeah, acidosis. Big problem.
Is a widespread and costly concern in dairy herds. A normal, healthy rumen pH generally ranges from around 5.5 to 7.0.
Okay.
When the pH dips too low, it severely impairs the cow's ability to properly digest their feed, leading to reduced feed intake, decreased rumination, and ultimately a negative impact on milk production, nutrient absorption, and overall health.
So these rumen boluses are like an early warning system for potential digestive upsets brewing inside the cow.
Precisely. They provide a constant, near real-time stream of data, allowing you to identify instances of subclinical or even acute acidosis long before any outward clinical signs become visually apparent.
Before you'd ever see it.
This table really helps to illustrate the key parameters. In the normal rumen pH range, you see consistent and healthy rumination and feed intake. But as you move into subacute and then acute acidosis,
Things go downhill.
the pH level drops, The amount of time the pH stays at those lower levels increases, feed intake becomes reduced and often more erratic, and the amount of time the cow spends chewing her cud rumination time takes a significant nosedive.
That makes perfect sense. Being able to catch those subtle shifts in internal conditions early on has got to be a real game changer in terms of preventing more serious health issues and production losses.
There really is.
Do we have any real-world examples of this technology making a difference on a dairy farm?
We certainly do. Jean-Philippe Breton of Ferme Breton in Quebec implemented rumen boluses in his high-producing cows, which were experiencing recurring bouts of acidosis.
Okay, what were his results?
He had calculated that each clinical case was costing him around $285 in terms of lost milk production, direct treatment expenses, and the added labor involved.
That adds up fast.
Even with the more insidious subclinical cases, they were observing a noticeable dip in average daily milk yield that wasn't linked to any other obvious symptoms.
Right.
After implementing the rumen boluses, they saw a remarkable 63% reduction in the number of clinical acidosis treatment cases they had to deal with.
63% reduction.
And were able to maintain a much more stable and healthier average rumen pH across the monitored group. He estimates that this translated to approximately $18,200 in annual savings for his 140 cow group of high-producing animals.
That's a pretty substantial return on investment right there. So what does the financial outlay look like for implementing these internal monitoring devices?
Rumen boluses themselves typically cost in the range of $120 to $180 per unit.
Per bolus.
Per bolus. There's also an initial investment required for the base station equipment and the necessary software integration, which is usually in the $3,000 to $5,000 range.
Okay, the infrastructure.
Many farms will strategically start by focusing on their transition cows, those in the critical period around calving, or their highest producing animals.
Target the highest risk or highest value animals first.
Exactly, as these are often the most metabolically stressed and therefore most susceptible to issues like acidosis. For a 300-cow dairy, outfitting the top 100 high-producing animals might involve an initial investment of somewhere between $15,000 and $22,000.
Right.
But the potential annual benefits, based on the experiences we've seen, can easily be around $13,000 per 100 monitored cows, leading to a payback period that again falls within that attractive 12 to 18-month window.
It really underscores this move from a reactive approach to a much more proactive style of management, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Instead of waiting to observe a visibly sick cow, you're getting objective, real-time data about their internal health before those outward signs even manifest.
Exactly. As the folks at Dairy Herd magazine aptly put it, being able to continuously monitor these key internal indicators before any significant problems arise can save producers hundreds of dollars per cow on an annual basis.
Hundreds per cow.
And is rapidly becoming an indispensable tool in modern dairy management. Now, let's shift our focus from the inside out to what's happening on the surface with the increasing adoption of wearable collar technologies.
Ah, yes, the high-tech necklaces that are becoming more and more common on dairy farms. I've definitely seen these around. What exactly do these collars typically track?
These aren't just fancy fashion accessories for cows. They're actually comprehensive data-gathering powerhouses.
Powerhouses, okay.
Modern collar technologies typically integrate a combination of sophisticated sensors to track a cow's activity levels, giving you insights into things like restlessness, which can indicate heat,
Heat detection, got it.
along with rumination monitoring to assess their digestive health, and even temperature sensing to provide early alerts for potential fevers or other health issues.
So activity, rumination, temperature.
It's essentially 247 real-time oversight right there on their necks.
So it's kind of like a Fitbit for cows, but specifically designed with a whole lot of agricultural intelligence built right in.
That's a pretty accurate and easy to grasp analogy.
Okay.
And just like those personal fitness trackers can alert you to subtle changes in your sleep patterns or heart rate, these collar-based systems can identify subtle shifts in a cow's behavior or physiology that might be indicative of an emerging health problem days before you'd ever notice any visual symptoms.
Days before, again, that early detection seems key.
This early detection is absolutely crucial for allowing timely intervention and can significantly reduce the need for more intensive or prolonged treatments, such as antibiotic use.
We've heard quite a bit about these collar systems being a game changer when it comes to heat detection and improving reproductive efficiency, haven't we?
Absolutely. Sander Peterman at Dutch Dairy in Wisconsin has seen a dramatic 90% reduction in their reliance on traditional synchronization protocols for breeding.
90% reduction in cinch protocols.
Since they implemented Cow Manager ear sensor technology which performs many of the same functions as these collar systems. And remarkably, their pregnancy rate has actually increased to an impressive 29%.
Wow, less intervention, better results.
On top of that, they've also experienced significant labor savings in terms of animal care and a reduction in their overall animal health costs.
Those are some pretty compelling results. What about examples where the primary focus of adopting collar technology was more on the general health monitoring aspect?
Ryan Woodall at Millbrook Dairy Farm in Guelph, Ontario, initially invested in collar technology primarily for its heat detection capabilities.
Okay.
They recognized they were missing a significant percentage of cows coming into heat simply by relying on traditional visual observation methods.
Easy to miss them.
The collar system effectively boosted their heat detection submission rate from 51% up to a much more efficient 76%.
That's a big jump, 51 to 76.
Which directly translated into a 14-day reduction in their average days, open a metric they estimate to be worth around $129 per cow annually to their operation.
So the repro benefits were clear.
But what really surprised them was the significant value they gained from the early health alerts generated by the system.
The unexpected bonus.
By being able to identify and address minor health issues much earlier than they would have otherwise, they've managed to reduce their overall antibiotic usage by a remarkable 36%.
36% reduction in antibiotics. That's huge. So it's really a win-win scenario.
Yeah.
Improved reproductive performance leading to more pregnancies, and a move towards a more proactive and potentially less reliant approach to antibiotic treatments.
Exactly.
That's something that resonates with both producers and increasingly with consumers.
Exactly. And the investment in these comprehensive activity monitoring systems typically ranges from about $80 to $150 per cow for the individual hardware components, the collars or ear tags.
Okay, 80 to 150 per head for the hardware.
There's also an initial cost for the base station equipment that receives the data, and often an annual software licensing or subscription fee.
Right, the ongoing costs.
For a 200-cow dairy, you might be looking at an initial outlay in the range of $18,000 to $35,000, along with an ongoing monthly subscription cost that could be somewhere in the neighborhood of $150 to $300.
Okay, so a decent investment.
However, the average payback period is generally quite attractive, often falling between 8 and 14 months.
Less than a year, potentially.
With many farms reporting annual benefits of around $12,900 per 100 cows, just from the improvements in reproductive performance alone.
And it sounds like these systems also offer a significant and often overlooked benefit in terms of improving the overall work-life balance for dairy farmers.
Absolutely. That's a big one.
Right.
These collar systems essentially act as that tireless, around-the-clock herdsperson, constantly monitoring your animals and only alerting you when there's actually a specific issue that requires your attention.
Instead of you having to constantly watch.
Rather than requiring you to spend countless hours every day on routine visual observation.
Okay, we've talked about all the different sensors collecting this vast amount of data. The RFID tags, the cameras for facial recognition, the rumen boluses, and the smart collars.
A lot of data points.
But what actually happens with all that raw information? It sounds like it could be incredibly overwhelming if you don't have a way to make sense of it all.
That's precisely where the transformative power of artificial intelligence, or AI, and machine learning comes into play.
Ah, AI. The brains of the operation.
These advanced technologies take the massive streams of data generated by these various ID and monitoring systems and transform what would otherwise be a flood of simple metrics into truly predictive and actionable insights that enable proactive management decisions.
So it finds the patterns.
It's all about tuning potential data overload into real, tangible management gold.
So the AI is essentially the intelligent brain that can sift through all the noise and make sense of the subtle signals the cows are sending through these technologies.
Exactly. And the market for farm management software that integrates AI and machine learning capabilities is experiencing rapid growth globally.
Big market growth.
With projections reaching nearly $6 billion by the year 2029. This significant growth really underscores the increasing value that dairy producers are finding in leveraging these AI-powered solutions on their farms.
Can you give us some specific practical examples of how AI and machine learning are being applied in this context of dairy herd management?
Certainly. We've already touched on facial recognition, where sophisticated AI algorithms analyze the images captured by cameras to accurately identify individual cows.
Right.
In the realm of health monitoring, machine learning algorithms can analyze the continuous stream of data coming from rumen biosensors to detect the very early signs of conditions like acidosis.
Based on those subtle patterns,
based on subtle and complex patterns in rumen pH, temperature fluctuations, and even changes in activity levels.
Okay.
What else? When it comes to reproduction management, AI can analyze the detailed activity data collected by collar systems to more accurately predict the optimal time for insemination by identifying even subtle behavioral changes associated with estrus.
Pinpointing breeding times.
And in the area of feed efficiency, predictive analytics powered by AI can be used to optimize ration formulations based on individual cow needs and performance data, leading to more efficient use of feed resources.
Tailored feeding. That's some pretty sophisticated stuff. It almost sounds like it requires a massive industrial-scale operation to justify the cost and complexity of implementing these kinds of AI-driven systems.
That's actually a common misconception. Research conducted by Dr. Elsa Vasseur at McGill University has demonstrated that even mid-sized dairy operations, those milking in the range of 80 to 120 cows,
So not just the mega dairies.
can realize a very attractive return on investment, often in the neighborhood of 3.9 to 1 within the first year of implementation.
Nearly 4.1 ROI in year one.
Wow.
The key is to strategically choose AI-powered systems that can seamlessly integrate with your existing on-farm infrastructure and to initially focus on those high-impact areas that will yield the most immediate and significant benefits,
Like repro and health.
such as reproduction and early detection of health issues.
So it's not necessarily about going all in on the biggest and fanciest AI system right out of the gate,
Now, start smart.
but rather about strategically implementing the specific AI tools that will give you the most bang for your buck in addressing your farm's particular challenges and goals.
Exactly. And as the comprehensive Digitizing Dairy Guide, published by Ever.Ag, rightly points out, the future of these interconnected digital solutions is increasingly focused on creating a more integrated and efficient value chain that extends beyond just the farm gate,
Connecting the whole supply chain.
creating valuable synergies and efficiencies across the entire dairy supply chain. What kind of financial investment are we typically looking at for incorporating AI into a dairy operation? Is it a separate big ticket item, or is it often integrated into the software platforms we've already discussed?
Often, most significant costs associated with AI adoption in dairy farming come in the form of annual software licensing fees, which can range anywhere from around $5,000 to $15,000 per year.
Okay. Annual software costs.
Depending on the complexity and scope of the AI-powered features. There might also be some initial consulting fees for the initial setup and integration of these systems.
Right, getting it set up.
However, it's becoming increasingly common for technology providers to offer AI capabilities as an integrated component of their standard subscription packages, sometimes for a relatively modest per cow, per month fee, perhaps in the range of $3 to $5.
So it might just be part of the package you already have or are considering?
Exactly. The substantial value you gain in return through things like proactive predictive health alerts, optimized culling decisions based on data-driven insights, and more precise reproductive timing typically leads to a very reasonable payback period,
How quick?
often in the range of just 6 to 12 months.
6 months to a year payback. That's fast. It really sounds like AI is taking a lot of the traditional guesswork out of many critical management decisions on the dairy.
It truly does. It essentially amplifies the farmer's existing expertise by being able to analyze incredibly complex patterns within the vast amounts of data being generated.
Patterns humans can't see.
Patterns that no human could realistically track and accurately interpret on their own. It's all about empowering producers to make more informed, data-driven decisions for a healthier, more productive, and ultimately more profitable herd.
Makes sense. Empowering the farmer.
And speaking of data and its security and integrity, let's now turn our attention to the potential role of blockchain technology in the dairy industry.
Blockchain. Isn't that the underlying technology behind all the cryptocurrency buzz? What in the world does that have to do with our four-legged friends?
You're absolutely right. Blockchain is the core technology that underpins many cryptocurrencies, but its fundamental function creating a secure, transparent, and virtually immutable record of data.
Immutable meaning.
Yeah.
Can't be changed.
Exactly. Can't be altered or tampered with. It has some really significant and potentially game-changing implications for the dairy industry. It's essentially a shared digital ledger,
A shared ledger. Okay.
ensuring a high degree of data integrity and traceability throughout the entire supply chain, from the farm all the way to the consumer.
So how would a technology like blockchain actually benefit a dairy farmer in their day-to-day operations? traceability.
For dairy processors across North America, there's a growing demand from consumers for greater transparency and accountability regarding where their food comes from and how it's produced.
Consumers want to know more.
Blockchain technology provides a powerful solution by allowing the tracking of virtually every step in the production process, from the feed a cow consumes to any medications they might receive.
Every single input.
All the way through to the processing and packaging of the final milk product, creating an unbroken and verifiable chain of custody that can be readily accessed and trusted by consumers.
That certainly makes sense from a consumer trust perspective, but are there any direct financial benefits for the farmers themselves for adopting blockchain technology?
Absolutely. Bill Van Ness at Cottonwood Holsteins in Ontario offers a great real-world example.
What's it doing?
He's currently receiving a premium of 0.04 cents per liter for his milk because he utilizes a blockchain-based system to meticulously document all of his on-farm production protocols.
4 cents a liter premium?
From feeding practices to animal health treatments and milking procedures. This provides the specialty dairy processors he sells to with a fully transparent and verifiable record that they can then share with their increasingly discerning customers.
That verification is worth money.
For his 250 cow herd, that premium translates to roughly $105,000 in additional revenue annually.
That's a pretty substantial premium. So is implementing blockchain technology a huge and costly undertaking for an individual dairy farmer?
It can actually vary quite a bit depending on the specific scope and scale of implementation.
Depends on the setup.
If you're participating in a blockchain initiative that's being led or mandated by a dairy processor or a larger cooperative, the direct cost to the individual farmer might be relatively minimal.
Might not cost much if the processor handles it.
However, for a more comprehensive on-farm blockchain system designed to track and manage a wider range of data, you could be looking at an initial setup investment ranging from around $10,000 to $30,000.
Okay, 10 to 30K for an on-farm system.
Along with potential ongoing annual maintenance and software subscription costs.
Oh.
The real value proposition, though, often lies in gaining access to those premium markets where consumers are willing to pay more for dairy products with verified production practices.
Accessing those premiums.
These premiums can range from below 2 cents to 0.6 cents per liter, which can add up significantly. Beyond direct premiums, blockchain can also enhance your own internal management capabilities by providing a highly secure and auditable record of all your farm data.
And tying it back to some of the other cutting-edge technologies we've discussed, such as rumen pH monitoring, it sounds like blockchain could be an incredibly powerful tool for providing verifiable proof of responsible and sustainable farming practices to consumers.
Exactly. Imagine being able to provide irrefutable, tamper-proof evidence of your responsible antibiotic usage protocols or your unwavering commitment to animal welfare through immutable records stored on a blockchain.
Proof positive.
That level of transparency can be instrumental in building and maintaining consumer trust and potentially opening up new and more lucrative market opportunities for your dairy products.
You've covered an incredible amount of ground here talking about all these truly transformative technologies, but it can't all be smooth sailing when it comes to adoption, right?
No, definitely not.
What are some of the key hurdles or challenges that are currently hindering a more widespread uptake of these advanced systems on dairy farms?
You're absolutely right. Despite the very clear and compelling benefits we've discussed, there are definitely several significant barriers that can slow down the adoption process. Financial constraints are a major one.
The cost, yeah.
As Manuel Soares from Milk Group aptly pointed out, investing in these advanced technologies requires a significant amount of upfront capital, and not all dairy farmers, particularly smaller operations, are in a financial position to make those kinds of substantial investments.
We've also touched on the potential complexities of data integration, haven't we? It sounds like having a bunch of different systems that don't talk to each other can create more headaches than solutions.
Precisely. Bethany Dishbande from SomaDetect highlighted the very real issue of data confusion, where a farm might have multiple different data tracking systems in place.
Data silos.
Perhaps one for milking parlor data, another for health records, and yet another for feed management. And these systems often don't communicate or share information effectively.
Nightmare to manage.
In some cases, they might even be collecting similar data points but in incompatible formats, making it incredibly difficult for the producer to get a comprehensive and unified picture of what's actually happening across their entire herd.
And I can certainly imagine that in many rural areas, something as fundamental as reliable and high-speed internet connectivity could be a major roadblock to implementing some of these cloud-based technologies.
That's a really significant and often overlooked challenge in many key dairy farming regions.
Rural internet can be tough.
Many of these advanced software platforms and data analytics tools rely heavily on a stable and high-speed internet connection to function effectively. So in areas where broadband infrastructure is lacking or unreliable, the practical effectiveness of these otherwise powerful technologies can be severely limited.
Need that connection.
Access to timely and knowledgeable technical support is another critical factor. When these complex systems encounter technical glitches or require updates, farmers need to be able to get prompt and effective assistance.
Good support is crucial,
which isn't always readily available in rural areas. And let's not forget the inherent human element. There's often a natural degree of resistance to change.
The "we've always done it this way" factor.
With some producers simply preferring the traditional methods they've used and are comfortable with for generations.
So it sounds like it's a complex interplay of financial limitations, technical challenges, infrastructure gaps, and even some cultural factors that can collectively slow down the pace of adoption despite the very clear potential benefits.
It's multifaceted, for sure.
But when you really boil it all down and stack up the potential costs of sticking with more traditional methods versus embracing these advanced identification technologies, what does the overall bottom line comparison look like for a typical dairy operation?
The difference is actually quite striking when you start to quantify the potential gains. When you directly compare traditional animal identification methods with a modern RFID system coupled with automated readers.
RFID versus old tags.
You're looking at potential annual benefits in the neighborhood of $7,700 per 100 cows, primarily through the reduction of costly errors and the streamlining of labor.
Okay, $7,700 for ID.
In the realm of health monitoring, the leap from relying solely on visual observation to implementing rumen boluses and smart collar technology can yield approximately $13,000 in annual benefits per 100 cows.
$13,000 for health monitoring.
Through earlier detection and more effective intervention. When it comes to heat detection, transitioning from traditional methods like tail chalk and visual observation to automated activity monitoring systems can offer around $12,900 in annual benefits per 100 cows.
Nearly $13,000 for heat detection.
It's largely due to improved conception rates and reduced days open. Even in an area like lameness detection, utilizing computer vision systems versus subjective visual scoring can save you approximately $9,400 per 100 cows annually.
Over $9,000 for lameness.
Through earlier and more accurate identification of affected animals. The efficiency gains realized by moving from manual record keeping to fully integrated data management systems can free up a staggering $24,500 in labor costs per 100 cows.
Whoa, nearly $25,000 just in labor efficiency.
And finally, even accessing premium markets through blockchain-verified production practices can potentially add another $10,500 per 100 cows in annual revenue.
10.5 from premiums.
When you tally up all these potential benefits across these key areas, the total annual financial advantage of embracing these advanced ID technologies can easily reach the ballpark of $78,000 per 100 cows.
Wow. That $78,000 figure we tick things off with really comes into sharp focus now. It's the sum of all these parts.
Exactly.
And as our esteemed colleagues over at the Bullvine would emphatically state, if you're still sitting on the fence and debating whether or not to adopt these technologies, you're not just standing still, you're actively falling behind the curve.
That's a very direct, but ultimately accurate assessment of the current situation. While some producers might have hesitated on adopting early activity monitoring systems just a few years ago,
The early callers, yeah.
those who took the plunge are now reaping significant rewards in terms of improved reproductive efficiency and reduced costs. And while others are only now beginning to consider the benefits of basic collar technology,
Still playing catch-up.
the early adopters in that space are already exploring the next level of sophistication with fully AI-integrated data analytics to drive even more proactive and precise management decisions.
It's a bit of an uncomfortable truth for some, perhaps, but the data really doesn't lie. The stark reality of the massive consolidation we've seen in the U.S. dairy industry.
The numbers are stark.
A staggering 63% drop in the number of dairy farms, alongside a 33% increase in total milk production between 2003 and 2023, really underscores the critical importance of maximizing efficiency in today's competitive market.
And technology is undeniably a major driving force behind that increased efficiency.
Absolutely.
And while nobody is suggesting that every single dairy farm needs to rush out and implement all 6 of these advanced technologies overnight,
not all at once.
Embracing a progressive and strategic approach to adoption is becoming increasingly crucial for long-term viability and success in the industry.
Strategic steps.
The economic realities are shifting. With ever-rising labor costs and the undeniably superior monitoring capabilities offered by these integrated systems, the real question is no longer whether you can afford to invest in this technology.
It's flipped.
It's increasingly becoming where you can afford not to.
It truly does feel like we're at a significant tipping point in the evolution of dairy farming. We've seen how advancements in genetics and traditional management practices have historically led to impressive doublings in milk production per cow.
Right, huge gains there.
But it's becoming clear that that next major leap forward, that next doubling of productivity, is going to be largely powered by the precision management that these cutting-edge digital technologies enable.
Absolutely. Precision is the future. The core message from the bovine is clear. The 6 key identification and monitoring technologies we've thoroughly discussed today, RFID, facial recognition, rumen boluses, smart collars, artificial intelligence, and blockchain,
Big 6.
are no longer futuristic concepts. They are delivering tangible and measurable benefits right now for North American dairy producers who are facing the very real challenges of today's industry.
Benefits are here and now.
The data overwhelmingly supports their effectiveness, showing significant reductions in animal misidentification, impressive accuracy in tagless identification, substantial cuts in treatment costs through early detection, dramatically improved heat detection rates, better overall conception rates, and even access to valuable premium markets.
And those industry consolidation statistics we mentioned earlier are really hard to ignore.
Very hard.
A 33% jump in total milk production, coupled with a 63% decrease in the number of herds in the U.S. between 2003 and 2023, powerfully illustrates how technology is allowing fewer farms to produce significantly more milk.
Fewer farms, more milk, driven by tech.
And while larger operations have certainly benefited from these advancements, it's important to emphasize that these technologies are becoming increasingly accessible and beneficial for dairy operations of all sizes.
That's a really critical point to underscore. Whether you're milking 80 cows or 8,000, the potential return on investment from strategically implementing these systems is often very compelling.
Good ROI across the board.
With the vast majority of these technologies paying for themselves within that 8 to 16 month time frame we've consistently seen in the data. As the bovine so rightly emphasizes, you don't have to have the latest technology, but you absolutely have to be able to effectively compete with those who do.
Compete or struggle.
That's the stark reality of today's challenging and rapidly evolving dairy market. The future undoubtedly belongs to those producers who embrace this ongoing digital transformation to create more productive, more efficient, and ultimately more sustainable dairy operations.
So to really distill it down for our listeners, what are some of the key takeaways that we should all be sure to remember from this deep dive into dairy ID technologies?
Okay, key points. We've seen that wearable collar systems can lead to a dramatic 90% reduction in the need for synchronization protocols in breeding programs, while simultaneously maintaining strong and even improved pregnancy rates.
Big repro gains from collars.
Rumen biosensors are proving incredibly effective at cutting the incidence of costly acidosis cases, helping producers maintain a healthier average rumen pH in their herds.
Boluses tackle acidosis.
Facial recognition technology is providing that crucial early detection of lameness and other health issues, potentially saving hundreds of dollars per case in treatment costs and lost production.
Facial recognition spots issues early.
While the specific implementation costs will naturally vary depending on the size and scope of your operation, the total combined annual benefit across these 6 key technologies can be in the neighborhood of $78,000 per 100 cows.
A big number again.
With the vast majority of these systems demonstrating a payback period of well under 2 years.
And just to wrap it up with a final, concise overview for everyone, like an executive summary.
Right. It really boils down to a pretty stark choice for today's dairy producer. You can either embrace these game-changing identification and monitoring technologies and position your operation for greater efficiency and profitability in the years to come.
Option A, embrace tech.
Or you risk becoming part of that significant decline in dairy farm numbers we've witnessed, even as total milk production continues to rise.
Option B, risk falling behind.
These 6 revolutionary technologies offer a documented and relatively rapid return on investment, often within a short 8 to 16 month time frame, and their benefits are increasingly accessible regardless of your herd size.
Quick ROI, all sizes.
Progressive producers who have already adopted these systems are reporting significant gains in overall efficiency, drastic reductions in costly errors and antibiotic usage, and a freeing up of valuable labor resources.
Real gains reported.
Essentially, these advanced digital monitoring systems are acting as tireless, around-the-clock herdspersons, providing early warnings of potential problems and even unlocking access to those valuable premium milk markets.
247 monitoring and market access. So the message is crystal clear. The data is in, and these technologies offer some serious and compelling advantages for virtually all modern dairy operations in North America.
Indeed, and for you, our knowledgeable listener, the critical question to ponder as you head back to the barn or the office is this: where does your operation currently sit on that technology adoption curve?
Where are you now?
And perhaps more importantly, what is one concrete and actionable step that you could realistically take today or in the very near future to begin or accelerate your own digital transformation journey?
That's your next step.
Perhaps it's finally exploring the possibilities of RFID if you haven't already made the switch, or maybe taking a closer look at the potential of color-based monitoring systems to significantly improve your reproductive efficiency and herd health.
Pick one thing to start, maybe. Ultimately, the strategic and thoughtful adoption of these truly game-changing identification technologies holds immense potential for driving increased efficiency, boosting profitability, and fostering greater sustainability in the North American dairy industry.
Huge potential.
It's not just about trying to keep up with the Joneses, it's about proactively building a stronger, more resilient, and more prosperous future for your own dairy farm.
There you have it. RFID, facial recognition, rumen biosensors, smart collars, AI, and blockchain. These aren't just futuristic buzzwords. They are the here and now tools differentiating the profitable from the precarious one. That $78,000 per 100 cows isn't a typo. It's a wake-up call. So the question I leave you with is this: is your operation built for the future, or is it a monument to the past? The choice and the consequences are yours. Here at the Bullvine, we'll keep bringing you the unvarnished truth and the innovations that truly matter to your bottom line and your future in this industry. You've been listening to the Bullvine Podcast, where we don't just watch the dairy revolution happen, we lead it. Until next time, keep challenging, keep innovating.